Great. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you. So it's quite an honor to be here with so many of you local leaders across the country. I want to thank NLC as well as NBC-LEO for creating a space for this important conversation and letting our company, SoundThinking, be a part of it. By the way of introduction, SoundThinking Incorporated is a public safety solutions company. We're mostly known. I need this? Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. So by the way of introduction, our company, SoundThinking Incorporated, is a public safety solutions company. We're mostly known for a leading acoustic gunshot detection technology known as ShotSpotter. And the reason this technology is so critical to public safety, in our view, is that surprisingly, 80 to 90% of criminal gunfire goes unreported in some of our most vulnerable communities with respect to gun violence. And as technologists, we're very excited about technology, but we also know that technology is not the sole solution to the complex issue of public safety and gun violence. And so our mission really goes beyond technology. It's really about how we help cities implement data-informed strategies that lead to safer communities. And we know from our work that technology by itself can't solve these complex problems. It really requires leadership, collaboration, and certainly a lot of trust. And public safety, and especially the issue of gun violence, which disproportionately affects our communities, and is a civil rights challenge for our generation, our residents are expecting us to reduce gun violence, have increased transparency, fairness, and deliver efficient, effective, and equitable public safety outcomes with responsible and measurable results. With under budget too. I guess that's another big challenge. They want us to do all these things at the same time. And so, unfortunately, a lot of times these conversations become very polarized, and it's about, it's this or that. We want to expand this conversation to include, it's not either or, it's and also, right? It takes a lot of things coming together to improve public safety. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with a leading elected official who's been struggling, or not struggling, but has been stepping up to deal with these challenges, Mayor Van Johnson. And so we're just going to jump right into it, if that's okay, Mayor Johnson.
Sure.
Okay, great. So, Mayor Johnson, let's start with the first question. You've been at this for a while, probably not too long because you're a young man, I'm going to say, but I'd love to know from your perspective.
Lying already, early in the morning, preaching and prayed and.
How the public safety conversation, how's that changed for you over the years? Have you noticed a change in the way people are approaching the public safety?
Well, it has. First of all, good morning, family. It's so good to see all of you all. Pleasure greeting you on behalf of our national leadership. And I got my start at NBC-LEO, and so y'all have always showed love to me. Always great to be in Birmingham. I started my career as a police officer, and so I have a very different perspective of most. And we've watched policing change, we've watched it evolve, we've watched it to now where there is an absolute war for talent. I don't know about you all, but in my county, there are at least 20 different police agencies. And each time we raise salaries, somebody else raises salary. Now, back in the day when I was a police officer, I would have loved it. But now, they're doing retention bonuses, they're doing lateral transfer incentives and all of these things. And so I don't know about how many of you all are not fully staffed in your police department? Yeah, not fully staffed. Not, because it's just always a challenge. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's really about how do you leverage personnel and technology. And it can't be or. And so since my time, obviously, I watched it evolve where there is more of an investment in technology to be kind of an accelerator or force multiplier in helping us to achieve our public safety needs. At the end of the day, we're responsible. Job number one is public safety. If folks are not safe, you cannot be effective. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know about y'all, but anything I can do to help keep folks safe, then how do we get to that point of doing it?
Mm-hmm. And given the staffing challenges, do you see that there's more interest in police departments or law enforcement agencies leveraging the resources and knowledge and insights of the community and kind of bringing them inside the tent with respect to developing strategies to address public safety?
You have to. I mean, I think there is a dichotomy between the walking the beat that I used to do, but now you have to be able to respond quicker. You have to be able to respond faster. You have to have knowledge-informed policing. You have to have what's called predictive policing, because sometimes we can really mess up by not having the right resources in the right place at the right time. And so for us, it's really almost a tabletop exercise as well about where do you deploy resources, where do you deploy funds, and really how you could be in multiple places sometimes all at the same time. And the reality is that it's very difficult to be able to do that. And so I live in a place like Georgia where they've lost their minds. Because in Georgia, I don't know about y'all, but in Georgia, they feel like guns can be everywhere. And everybody can have a gun. We have what's called constitutional carry, which means that anybody can have a gun for any reason at any time. And that, you hear the Second Amendment. I mean, I believe we can protect the Second Amendment and protect second graders at the same time. And so how do we do that in the fact that we are competing with a society that says that guns can be everywhere in your community, and we're playing, as the mayor said earlier, whack-a-mole, trying to figure out how to get where, when, how, at the fastest time that we can.
Yeah, it makes it very challenging, I would imagine, to kind of find that needle within a haystack, because now you have so many people carrying weapons. But I think statistically we know from criminology work that it's very few that cause the vast majority of the harm. These kind of serial trigger pullers that are really putting communities and neighborhoods at risk. And so how do you find that individual and have some type of intervention with them before they hurt or kill someone?
Oftentimes with stolen guns.
Exactly, yes.
And so, back in my great state of Georgia, we had over 245 guns stolen from cars that were unlocked. Not locked cars, not windows being broken. The car was unlocked. The gun was in the car. And so they didn't have to work hard to get it. They just opened the door and took the gun out. So, Savannah kind of being who we are, we institute a law saying, lock your car. Lock your car. The state legislature this year, on the second day, tried to change the law to say we cannot tell people to lock their cars. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so we're fighting not only the perennial trigger pullers in the street, we're also fighting state governments and threats of preemption from people who will charge us to say, well, you got to keep your community safe, but we're not going to give you the tools to do it. If that's like I'm venting, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I remember when I first joined the company back in 2010, I went on a ride-along in Baltimore, Maryland, and it's typical. I'm in the car with a patrol officer. We're driving around. They're supposed to kind of keep me out of harm's way, but they had an incident where a young man was shot, and they required resources there to kind of control the crime scene. And I remember I grew up in Oakland, California, so I've been around things, but I've never gone to the scene of a particular homicide. So I was kind of getting myself ready or prepared for what I was about to see. And what struck me was that the thing that was most upsetting to me, and it was upsetting to see this young man's life ended there, splayed out in the street. He couldn't have been more than 16 years old. The thing that shook me to my core was the non-reaction of the individuals around the scene, particularly young people, as though they had kind of seen this before and were completely desensitized to that. And that really shook me up to really understand that the cost of violence goes well beyond the statistics of a homicide or a gunshot wound victim, but the kind of overall desensitizing of communities that are dealing with ongoing persistent gun violence. and what that does with respect to all manner of outcomes that has nothing to do technically with violent crime. I'm thinking, academic achievement. I'm thinking teenage pregnancies. I'm thinking early drug and alcohol abuse, and the like. Is that something you subscribe to? Is that something that?
It's all connected.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and so it got to the point where gunshots, I wouldn't hear them anymore because I was so used to being able to hear them. Mm-hmm. It creates not only a desensitization of it, it also creates post-traumatic stress disorder that is not treated.
Mm-hmm. Untreated, yes.
That's right, it's not. And so, these individuals grow up where you have some folks in our community that are just totally outraged. Oh my gosh, this doesn't happen in my neighborhood. You all have those folks, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
yes.
They're just, and then you have a segment of your population that's just like, welcome to my life.
Yeah.
Welcome to what I deal with.
Yes.
And I think in a way that hurt people. And so if you grow up not being alarmed at gunfire, being overexposed to guns, mm-hmm. being desensitized to trauma. Mm-hmm. You never saw a body. I think I was 12 years old when I first saw my first body laying on the ground. Mm. When you get to that point, then if you're not careful, then life may not have as much of a value as well mm-hmm. when you get older. Mm-hmm. And again, we're fighting against these social issues, these mental issues, these psychological issues of young people that are growing up sometimes to be ticking time bombs. Mm-hmm. And we don't know when and where that is. Mm-hmm. If a young person can't see themselves past tomorrow, that is the most dangerous person in your city.
Absolutely, yeah, I completely agree. So you brought something interesting around those residents that have the oh my God, this has never happened to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I'm not to get too political here, but sometimes those are the voices that might show up in city council meetings that push against policing and technology. Right? They have like high-minded values. Right. And,
oh my God.
Yeah. And so they're saying, hey, like we don't want police. We want to protect our communities by not having police or not having technology. Have you encountered that?
Well, issue? No, actually, with some of those, the oh my gods are like, we need to have police on every corner. We need to have them outside my house. Mm-hmm. I need them walking my kids to school because I just don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. And of course that's not the reality. But as local officials, we deal with those types of things where people want to take an incident and blow it to, unknown proportions. So Savannah is big enough to be small, but small. Oh my God.
Oh my God, yeah.
That doesn't happen here.
Great.
But they have these unrealistic expectations of you and law enforcement. I don't know about y'all in social media. They come for me on my social media, and if they come for me and I didn't send for them, that becomes a problem.
You're my hero.
Well, it happens, but because you have to push back against bullying as well.
Yeah.
And you have to also push back against false narratives being created.
Yes.
And if you don't push back, there's a Chinese proverb that says, "He who tells the story first is believed." So if it's keep being said, it becomes a narrative, even if it's not true.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's about they want over policing, which we talked about a little bit ago, is that it's really physically unable to do, because I can't have a police officer standing on your corner every single day. Mm-hmm. Number two, we know that more policing does not necessarily mean less crime.
Correct.
We also know that that there are challenges with being able to maintain police forces, and the war for talent keeps going on. So again, for us, technology helps us to be able to address that. Now, on the same end of it, as we move toward technology, then you have the oh my gods now. Oh my God. My privacy.
Surveillance.
Oh, you're watching us. You're big brother. Now you're watching my license plates, and now you have things. I just wanted to go out and shoot my gun for New Year's Eve. I mean, what's wrong with that? It's like, really?
Yeah.
But again, these are the issues that we face, and unfortunately, we live at the intersection, as we talk about often, of white fear and black expectation.
Say more.
Yeah. That sometimes on one end of it, we're not, in our black world, we're not doing enough, and in our white world, we're doing too much.
Too much. Mm-hmm.
And we're living at that intersection where at the end of the day, nobody's happy. Mm-hmm. Based on that. And so, for us in Savannah, we've really said, you know what, well, we're not going to be afraid of technology. You're familiar with Savannah's story.
Yeah.
It was Savannah College of Art and Design is one of the largest art schools in the nation. They actually pay for our ShotSpotter at first downtown to protect their students because their parents, they pay a lot of money to go to the Savannah College of Art and Design, and the parents, oh my God, I want my child to be safe. So, SCAD actually paid for ShotSpotter to be in our downtown areas around their schools. And it becomes so successful. Ultimately, now we've expanded it where it's across all of our districts across our city.
Yeah, excellent job. Let's give a round of applause for that. We appreciate that. So the thing I love about the Savannah case study is, strong on collaboration. So here's a public institution dealing with a private institution, collaborating together to kind of fund a technology. That's super important. The second piece that's even more important than the technology and the collaboration is the proper use of the technology, and just recognizing that technology in and of itself can't solve anything. It really requires the operational integration and implementation of best practices. In the case of Savannah PD, they get a ShotSpotter alert, they're getting cops to the dot, they're getting the officer out of the car if they're not encountering a perpetrator or a potential gunshot wound victim, that they're surveilling the area for visible forensic evidence in the form of shell casings and the like. This becomes critically important, by the way, with respect to a program called NIBIN. And if you all aren't familiar with NIBIN or gun crime intelligence, you should be, because the notion is that very few individuals create most of the problem, and those individuals are tied to very few guns. And the more intelligence you can get about where guns are being used criminally from situation to situation by recovering those shell casings and running them through NIBIN and essentially getting the fingerprint for that gun, you can more quickly intercept the individual that's driving most of the violence. This is so critically important. I always get very frustrated when people report out, it says, well, Savannah, they've been using this technology, but they only made 10 arrests. And the question I always say is like, well, who are the 10 that they arrested? Because if the 10 that they are arrested are driving 60% of the problem, a la Omar, for those of you that watch The Wire, right? That's the person you want to have an intervention with. It's not the corner boys. You can make 5 arrests with the corner boys, but by getting Omar, you can really address the issue.
It's a tool. It's a tool. The tool is never, people use tools. The tool is not supposed to use people. Mm-hmm. And so, 2 things about the technology that I liked in particular. One was, it's very humanizing to hear the gunshot. The technology allows you to hear the gunshot. And it puts a pit in my stomach when you hear, pap, pap, or pap, 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 pap. It's like, oh, shoot. And, now your new iteration shows the direction the gunshots were going in, so it helps us to use other technologies such as Flock and other things to be able to say, all right, this individual is going this way. If you're able to take this technology of when guns have been fired, where they've been fired, the time of day they've been fired, you can now extrapolate that data to do some predictive policing in terms of overlaying other things on here in terms of community safety, in terms of blight, and helps you identify issues. If you have the same amount of shooting going on, nightly or every weekend on the same block, I suspect there's somebody on that block that you might need to be paying attention to.
Yes.
And so again, for us, it helps us to be effective. As you said, a lot of gun violence. Sometimes gunshots go unreported. We have rolled up on places from a ShotSpotter alert within seconds and found the perpetrator still on the scene. They hadn't a chance to get away. So we've been able to effect some arrests. Individuals who've been shot who all of a sudden don't know who shot them. We've been able to deal with that. And so again, our response time in relation to this, and is usable by our entire force. So we're able to get those alerts as well. And again, it's really just paid dividends for us as we leverage technology.
Thank you. And I'm really excited about the idea of using the data to inform non-law enforcement interventions around social services. So you talked about that corner, that street that maybe had ongoing persistent gunfire. Maybe that's an area where we have to provide some social services, particularly as it relates to young kids that might be exposed to that level of violence, and coordinate with the local schools and the like to get trauma-informed
and we
resources.
do. A lot of us have nonviolent. We have an office of neighborhood safety and engagement. So when we have those issues, then we're not necessarily sending police there. We're sending the nonviolent interrupters in there, because obviously there's something going on there that doesn't necessarily require, as you said, a police response.
Yeah.
It requires a social service response. How can we get in here and how can we help in a way to remove the issue, through a non-law enforcement means?
I've gone completely off script because this is such an organic conversation. I appreciate it. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
So just a comment, Matt Howard, City of Warrensville Heights, Ohio. So what we did, because we were talking about people stealing guns from cars, so responsible gun ownership is going to be the way to really hold people accountable. So what we did was we made sure that we're abiding by the rule that you have to secure your firearm. We're an open carry state. You can carry concealed with no permit. I'm a gun owner. I keep it in my car. Has there been times where we may or may not have forgot that it might have been in there? I'm sure it has been, right? But you have to hold people accountable. Like if you got it in the car, it comes up missing, that's on you, right? You should have had it locked up, either in the glove box or in the trunk or something like that. You should have had it locked up. That's just the way that we try to hold people accountable. So when they come back and say, hey, I don't know what happened, somebody stole my gun, you know how that goes too. Sometimes that's legitimate and sometimes it's not. But that's one way to hold people accountable.
Except in Georgia.
In Ohio, that's what we did.
Yeah, it's frustrating because we did that, and so now our state is saying, well, we're going to make it illegal for you not to, and we're going to allow residents to sue you. It's the craziest crap, but Ohio's all right.
Hello, Lamont Jones, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I got a question for you and maybe for the group. A lot of the things that we're seeing in our communities in regards to the violence with our youth, a lot of people are dependent upon these depleted police departments, if you could say. They don't have a full, the full complement. But what are we doing as a community? I think getting back in 2026, policing should look like the community should be policing, right? Meaning protecting our neighborhoods. If it's block by block, making sure, one of the things that I do is I would hold, block captain meetings. So I would train the people in the neighborhood to do certain things. There's always someone in the neighborhood that knows everything, that knows what's happening, that knows what's going on. And if you can train them and teach the other people in that community, I think that would help just protect some of our communities. Because the police, if we're honest, they only come after something happens. They're not there to prevent it. Sometimes they can be. I've seen instances where they were raped on this block, but then a shooting happened on the one beside them. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to know what your thoughts was, and I hope that's a conversation for everybody in the room to think about, teaching our communities to get back to being neighborhoods instead of hoods. Put the neighbor back in the hood. That's what I got.
I was raised in that way. Many of us were. You didn't need the police on the block. You were afraid of Big Mama more than you were the police. Matter of fact, you wanted to call the police to get you from Big Mama. But again, putting that unity back in community really requires us to really create a situation where people feel empowered and they feel protected in acting. Because one time you could talk to other people's kids. Now you can't hardly say nothing to nobody else's kids. You have a problem. They sit here. You got neighbors, and they know their kid is dirty, and they bringing TVs into the house. They selling. They're 50 years old, have no job, with a T-shirt on, standing out, all day long outside. I mean, I would have been. My mother would have turned me in. She would have took me herself. So again, I think, is a law enforcement response, but you're absolutely right. It does take a community kind of saying that we're tired of this crap and we're going to take our community back. And if you are a part of what's going wrong in our community, we're going to get you out of our community.
Great. So I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll call it a wrap.
Good morning, everyone. Amber Silvers, First Vice President, NBC-LEO, Commissioner, City of Lawrence. # birthplace of NLC. I appreciate this conversation, especially with the background of how can technology make all our communities safe and not necessarily safe for those and not for others. And I feel like that is an intersectionality of policing and public safety, where I feel like policing is a culture and public safety is a system. And sometimes we think that changing the culture will change the system, which literally is just putting lipstick on a pig. So I just wanted you to maybe briefly talk about how the relationship of those two and how technology, where does technology fit? Is it more of a culture shift, or is it truly about the system?
Well, I think public safety is a public responsibility. If we talk about public safety and only align it with police, we're missing the whole point. Public safety is police, it's fire, it's community services, it's all of those things. It's an ecosystem. And a lot of it for us is also a system that we don't control. In Savannah, we arrest the folks. We don't control what happens afterwards. We don't control prosecutors. We don't control judges. It upsets us when so-and-so shot somebody and 2 weeks later, he's back out on our streets again. So, for us, it is how do we create this entire system that educates people beyond policing? Mm-hmm. How do we now build better cases through the technology? Mm-hmm. Because we now could pull up dial up a map of saying, these are the gunshots and these are the events on this date and this time over this period of time that is attributed to this person, which is why he doesn't need to be on our streets. Mm-hmm. And that is technology that we did not have before. So if we can make a better case against him, then guess what? Ralph may have to go away from our community a while till he can learn to live along civilized folks. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I think we've run out of time. I want to thank you, Mayor Van Johnson. This has been a great conversation. Thank you all very much for your participation and engagement. And I'm sure people will be around to chat later. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks. Everybody give it up for our speakers today. We've had a great fireside chat, but we want to